Even Shams Charania missed this, as we got some new updates and details on the Jakob Poeltl contract extension that clearly reveals what his intentions were when signing that contract, and that makes things very interesting for the Toronto Raptors moving forward. And on top of it, I've heard a lot of discourse, a lot of back and forth. It's one of the more polarizing topics amongst Toronto Raptors fans right now, and in fact, national media, when talking about the Toronto Raptors this offseason, it's how strong this center position is for this Raptors team, and whether or not this extension made sense for the Toronto Raptors to give to Jakob Poeltl here right now. So we're going to debate what's going on with the discourse on this Jakob Poeltl extension, all the new updates that have been revealed to us now at this point, and personally, why I still think this is a very, very good move for the Toronto Raptors. So lots of stuff to dive into and break down out here in this video, but before we do that, folks, I want to thank each and every one of you that have been really kind out there in the comment section as of late. Everyone that's tuned in the videos, but got a lot of nice comments on the most recent vid for all the work we're putting in out here in the summer. So appreciate every single one of you that tune into the channel. And if you want to join this community we're building, we're marching towards that 40,000 subscriber goal. Make sure you guys hit that sub button so you don't miss a single thing that's going on with this Toronto Raptors team, especially now with Summer League just around the corner. But let's dive into the news, because we got some updates regarding Jakob Poeltl, his extension, everything like that. Because, news came out from Shams Charania about a week ago now at this point. The Raptors center Jakob Poeltl has agreed to a 4-year, $104 million contract extension with the franchise through to the 2029-2030 season. Jakob will pick up the 2026 player option and, at $19.5 million and add 3 additional years to his deal. So this is what Shams ended up revealing, dropped some details, dropped a little article diving a bit more insight, bit more nuance on that whole situation, but we didn't hear a lot of the specific, structure in regards to the contract and what Jakob Poeltl was really pushing for, because he didn't decline his player option and increase money up front. What was he really looking for out here in this deal? Well, Blake Murphy, the day of, so this isn't super new either, but Blake Murphy initially came out and said this is the structure. This is the year-per-year money that can come into play for Jakob Poeltl here now at this point. So $19.5 million this season, $19.5 million the next year, and then 3 additional years following that. So $26.4 million, $28.5 million, and then $30.6 million years down the line. So that is the updates. That's what we knew. We figured out, okay, that's all the information we're going to get. But we got some more details in terms of what's going on with this contract, paired alongside a quote with Jakob Poeltl once this extension was made official. So I'll break down his quote first because it gives some insights in terms of what he was looking for. So he came out and said, "Toronto has always felt like home for me. I want to be a Raptor for life. Thanks to Bobby and the ownership team for believing in me, and to the fans for their amazing support. We have a young core that's full of potential, and I believe we are ready to take the next step. I can't wait to get back together out there in the Scotiabank Arena court." So this is very important coming from Jakob Poeltl, because he really made it clear that he wants to be a Toronto Raptor for life. He wants to be on this team for a long time, and he said that. He really appreciates stability, and even at the point where the Toronto Raptors were losing games, were tanking, it was worrisome that this team wouldn't be great. Last summer, we heard some buzz from Jakob Poeltl being like, okay, I don't want to be on a team that's losing every single night in, night out. Well, now he's locked up for a very, very long time, and he values that stability on this Toronto Raptors team. So why is that important for these new updates in regards to his contract details? Well, we got some insights in terms of, the additional parts, because he kept that $19 million per year, number for this team. And essentially, Blake Murphy has revealed that, so we'll bring this up here. So the official extension structure is 2027-2028, $27.3 million, 28-29, $29.5 million, and now in the 29-2030 season, it goes back down to the $27.3 million. And then the 29-2030 season is only guaranteed for the $5 million, but that increases if he plays over 1,400 minutes in all of those seasons, and even more if he the 14 minutes plus and the Raptors make the playoffs. So there's some incentive structures there. That's not crazy important. We're not too worried about, how the millions of dollars, adjustments out there cap for the 29-2030 season. But what makes this more and more interesting is there's a 5% trade kicker out there for Jakob Poeltl's contract. So right now, Jakob Poeltl, he is always been brought up, especially with the Toronto Raptors, have been brought up in the big fish conversations, trying to aggregate salaries, trying to put things together in order to make a move happen. But one thing that was added to this deal that we saw right there is that 5% trade kicker. And in the modern NBA, where cap flexibility, cap negotiations, being able to weasel your way in and out under the tax and all that stuff, these little things are way more impactful in the modern NBA than they may have been, 5, 10, 15 years ago. So Jakob Poeltl really wants to stay on this team long term and doesn't really want to be floated out in a ton of trade rumors. Of course, the 5% trade exception is trade kicker isn't going to, so that essentially means if he's traded, he gets that 5% bonus or whatever the heck it is. So essentially, Jakob Poeltl, while this won't immediately pull him from all these trade talks, it will make them more difficult if the Toronto Raptors are trying to, aggregate contracts, trying to trade away assets to land a big fish, whatever the heck they try to do under the new president of basketball operations, whether that's Bobby Webster or someone else. Jakob Poeltl will be tougher to trade than we expected from that initial, contract signing, which I don't mind because I'm a big Jakob Poeltl guy. Looking at his stats, I know there's been a lot of discourse about, who are we, like I see Bill Simmons and all, who are you fighting against to, bring in Jakob Poeltl and stuff, right? But 15 points per game, 10 rebounds, 3 assists, 1.2 blocks, 1.2 steals per game is one of those upper echelon centers in the entire NBA. He wants to be here, and he's elite defensively. He's not going to be a crazy jump out of the gym shot blocker, but he's going to be very, very impactful night in, night out there on the defensive end of the floor. Like, we look in terms of where he is, his defense abroad is the top 10%. You have, his post defense is probably, if not the best, the top 1% out there in the entire NBA. Basically, all of the post defense and his mobility out there in the pick and roll, he can guard pick and rolls and move his feet really well for a center his size. These are all the metrics you want to see your center in the top upper echelons, and Jakob Poeltl is in right now. So you don't want to let a guy like this go. You don't want him to be, teasing you around. We saw how long it took the Toronto Raptors to land one of those top centers out there in the NBA. So when you have one on your roster, even if he's not a top 5 guy, even if he's not a multi-time all-star or whatever that is, he's not a 3-point floor spacer, Jakob Poeltl is one of the upper echelon top 15 centers out there in the NBA. I think it's really tough to argue that when you take a look at his defensive stats, what his box score numbers are. So you want to keep this guy under contract long term, right? These aren't the contracts that are going to age poorly because he's a bad defender, the Vucevic, whatever. Jakob Poeltl defensively is always going to be a plus out there on the basketball court while he's in his athletic prime, which he is over the course of this contract. So no worries on that front. He's not going to be, his jump shot's going to fall off a cliff. He's just finishing around the rim. He makes high IQ plays. That's what he does out there on the basketball court. So Jakob Poeltl, locking him in long term, even though the contract is going to be a little bit more difficult to trade, it's at a tradable number. So, if you do have a big opportunity comes up, you get an absolute steal, Ulrich Shamshay turns into a superstar, you can have that flexibility of moving off him in the future, but you want to keep him, respect him long term, and he wants to be a Toronto Raptor for life. So I think this is a very good extension, even with these latest updates. And we do have, if we want floor spacing, we do now have some options on that level, as this team did bring in Mamu, from the San Antonio Spurs, 6 points per game, 3 rebounds, 37% from the 3-point line, 26% on corner threes is what it is, but he can space the floor out there for this group, right? Sandro is going to be a player that is going to be the rotation for this Raptors team. I'll have a lot of young guys up in the wings. This was a good deal for the Toronto Raptors. Don't get it twisted. Jakob Poeltl's coming back even with these new details. So let me know what you guys think about all this in the comment section down below. You guys are the best thing to start. Subscribe to the channel if you guys haven't already. Anyways, I'm signing out. Cheers.